There's a time when we're implementing and doing our strategy. Today, we're going to talk about follow up and follow through. After the intro, let's get it.
You have one life. You got a calling and a purpose. Welcome to the Witness to Power podcast, the show that encourages and inspires you to be who God has called you to be. I'm your host and digital evangelist, Ashley Sims.
What's going on, everybody? We are back again. That we've been walking in this new season of our life. And I look at it like this is so important that we recognize where we are, the stage that we're in right now, to go forward and to go out and do what the Lord has put in our heart to do, and not sit there and rest and wonder if this year is going to be the same as it was last year and the year before. We have things that God has put in our heart to do and that we must see through the end to fruition, that we can stand and say that the Lord is mighty and the hand of the Lord has done this for us. Walking in our destiny and walking in miracles and walking in the signs and wonders of God, so that we can talk to others and show them that our God is mighty, then the hopelessness that the enemy gives you and the world will throw at you, and to have you just wander around, what do I do? What is life all about? Is there all there is? And you'll be asking yourself that because you're not walking with the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. Throughout the time that we're doing what we do, there is one thing that we have to do when we do anything, and that's be a good at follow-up. Follow-up means to pursue or investigate something further. And if you know what I know, and you had experience in your life, that things require you to follow up on and make sure that they're done and completed. So after follow-up, you have to follow through, which means to continue an action or task to its conclusion. So we're talking about follow-up and follow through. Something you have to get good at. You hear this a lot when it comes to running a business, that money is in the follow-up, because a customer, when you meet a customer, they may see it one time. And I often talk to my family and my children about this, because if you notice any brand that's out there, like Coca-Cola, McDonald's, or anything, they still run advertisement. And then they have this thing called analytics, where it's the follow-up. And then they'll notice certain things about certain ads or whatever it is that's a follow-through, till they get a certain revenue at the end to make sure that their ads are being maximized. The same thing it is with our life and the things that we're being assigned to do to completion. Our life is more important than a commodity. We have to begin to learn to follow up and follow through on things that God has put in our heart to do. That's all it is. Because that way we can look at over our life and say, man, look what the Lord has done for me. I remember an episode that I done, and I recorded it, but I didn't do the systems check. And I recorded a whole show, a long show, and it was garbled. The sound was awful, because I've gotten comfortable with grabbing a mic, cut it on, and having the settings set, and nobody's changing them because I don't know no one was using this system. However, that particular day, I did what I was supposed to do, and guess what? Time was wasted. That I had to do a whole another show, which I had, if I would have done my follow-up and follow-through, that could have been 2 shows that I could have done that particular morning. Would have 2 episodes to deliver to you guys. But it taught me a great lesson that day. Don't assume that something is set in place. That's why in the military we used to do checks all the time. Check our gear, check the equipment, check everything we need before we go into the mission that we were supposed to do. How is it that businesses and systems have that, but we don't have that? We should begin to implement that stuff in our life so that we can get the results that we aspire to get. And sometimes things are delayed because of us doing this, but because we're waiting on a response or something that we set in motion, but we never ever did the follow up on whatever it was. So many things in our life are left open. Our tasks are never, or I wouldn't say never, but are not complete. And sometimes it's because we had it in our mind to go do something and we just plumb forgot. Because life doesn't stop lifing. Things continue to go and time continues to go, and your life still has things involved with it because you're connected to other people, whether you like it or not. There are people connected to you, family, friends, job, business, whatever you do. There is some connection to other people in your life. And there's some connections that you had in the past that you don't want to deal with anymore. And sometimes they come back up and we have to deal with it accordingly as the Lord leads. So it's a new season that we are walking in as we tripped over to this new year. And we must be more strategic with our time, our life, and our resources. Because we could end up putting ourselves back in this cycle of defeat, the cycle of incompleteness, and the cycle or waiting for things to happen. But we got to follow up to follow through so that we can get those results that God has placed in our heart, so that we can continue to give our testimony and show the world that the Lord is strong and the Lord is mighty in my life, not in somebody else's life, in your life, in our life, so we can talk about ourselves and we can tell them, look at the Lord has done. It's okay to talk about other people's testimony, but how about the ones that you have, the ones that affect you? That's a great thing to have. We cannot have a check the box mentality because it's going to keep you stuck. And what I mean by this, it's the things that we do every day and without compassion because it become like automatic. But every now and again, you need to go and do a system check on your life and make sure you aren't caught in a rut, because everything seems well and you'll say, man, this came out of nowhere, but it did not. It's built up over time because we didn't follow up on things and then we didn't follow through with some things. I guarantee if you look at some of the things that went off track, you had some awareness of it, but it was small at the time. But then it gained momentum. You thought about it, say, I'm going to get to it. You thought about it, No, it was in your face. And there's a saying, it's easier to stop a locomotive before it starts than when it gets its full steam. So that's why they had to stop miles away before they get to the station, wherever they are. So we in our life, we have to not be unpassionate about the things we do because we become this cycle. We must pursue our goals to completion and with that faith and with the heartfelt, because they're going to take us somewhere. And when God is involved, my Lord, other people are going to be blessed with the successes you have. The overflow that's in your life, that's coming to your life, that's been spoken over your life, is coming to fruition because we're connected to a God that does not fail. We can no longer leave things up to chance. We got to go with intention. We need to follow up, read the vision, and run with the vision. In other words, when we have wrote that vision and running as we read, we're taking action on the things that God placed in our heart to do. In the book of Habakkuk, the Lord answered me as the Lord answered you, or even you asked the Lord, what must I do? What path I must take? Shall I pursue? That's what we have to do. We get to look back and go to God so we can follow up with God, so he can give us instruction so we can follow through to see how our life is going to be. And shall we do this thing or not? I'm reminded of David in the book of Chronicles. You also can find this in the book of Samuel. It was sometime after the death of Saul, and David was anointed king. So I'm going to pick it up, 1 Chronicles 14:8. And when the Philistines heard that David was anointed king over all Israel, all the Philistines went up to seek David. And David heard of it and went out against them. Now let's look at this thing. The Philistines heard, David heard, and after they heard, they took some action. Sometimes we hear things in our life, but we don't do any follow-up and then some follow through. The Philistines is like, this David that killed our champion back in the day, now he's king. We about to go see about this. And they wasn't going to see him and bring some cookies and milk or some cake or something. They were coming to overtake him. They was coming to take out his kingdom. And that's how the enemy sees you when God places you in your rightful place and you stand on authority. He hear about you and then he comes after you. And David heard too. And guess what David did? He went out against them. So if we look at this, it's like our life ourselves. We have victories over the enemy. So when we hear about the enemy coming out against us, then we go out against him. But David does something that's very important, the step that we should not forget. David inquired of the Lord. And David said, and I'm picking up verse 10, and David inquired of God, saying, shall I go up against the Philistines? And then he says this, and will thou deliver them into mine hand? And the Lord said unto him, go up, I will deliver them into thine hand. Now, if we look at this prayer, David not only says, ask him two things. He said, shall I go up against the Philistines? And now, if we just look into this and deduct from this that if David just asked, shall I go up against the Philistines? He's like, yeah, go ahead. But David doesn't stop there. He says, if I go up, basically, will you deliver them into my hand? The Lord said, go up, answer the first question. And then he said, answer the second question. I will deliver them into thine hand. How many of you guys are praying, but not praying it through completeness? We ask God, we follow up with God. See, he asked a follow-up question. David said, shall I go up? And also, if I go up, God, will you deliver them in my hand? God answers him both times. And then they won. And then the Philistines came out to him another way. They spread themselves in the valley. And guess what King David does? He goes back to God and he says, he inquires of God again. This is verse 14 in the Chronicles. Therefore, David inquired again. He said again, keyword again. However, sometimes what we do when God gives us a victory, we assess that we continue to do the same thing because it worked the one way. Now, David shows us the relationship it takes with God. And many of us, including myself, don't do this as much. We get comfortable with our decision making. We get comfortable with doing what we're doing because we think this stuff is beneath God because it's everyday life. And like I said, I've been caught at this myself many times because it's every day, it's normal. We get up and go, and we get up and go and get up and go. When we're in a battle, we're in decision-making time. Or whatever it is in your life that seems critical or non-critical, or a question comes to your heart, the first thing we need to do and should do is go to the Lord. What we must do is stop and think about who has the answer to all. Who can keep us from falling? Who can keep us out of troubles? It's God. It's our Lord. So David inquires a second time because the Philistines came out to him another way, and that's key. They came out him one way, and then they came out him against him another way because their mission was to overtake him and take him out. And David knew this was serious. So he went to God. And we have to take ourselves serious and our life serious and not take it so lightly sometimes. So in 14, he said, therefore David inquired again of God. And God said unto him, go not up after them turn away from them and come upon them over against the mulberry trees. And it shall be, when thou shalt hear a sound of going in the tops of the mulberry trees, that then thou shalt go out to battle. For God is gone forth before thee to smite the host of the Philistines. David therefore did as God commanded him, and they smote the host of the Philistines from Gibeon even to Gazer. Because David inquired of God. This time, God went before him. He did it a different way. God is a God that does things so magnificent, and we look at it like, well, he's going to do it this way. Yes, he's going to do it another way. He did it before, he can do it again. He did it for him, he can do it for me. Did it for her, he can do it for us. Did it for his family, he can heal, he can deliver, he can save, do miracles. And I want to go back for a second. I don't want to leave this part out. The first time David inquired to the Lord, when he went up and overtook them, there is a word, Baal Perazim, the Lord that breaks. That's where we get the term, you hear people, the Lord of the breakthrough. And I want to point this out to you. The Lord will help you break through whatever wall the enemy's put up, whatever surrounds you, whatever you believe is holding you back. The anointing of the Lord will destroy those bondage, will break down and break through whatever is coming after you. So we must remember that God is almighty, all powerful, and all knowing. And you're not alone. The Lord of the breakthrough is going to be there for you. But what we have to do is do like David, follow up and follow through. So in your life, no matter what task you're doing, no matter how minimal or how small, we can go to God and say, Lord, shall I go up? And will you overtake it or overthrow or tear down or get results? Whatever it is you want to put in that, let's inquire of God so that we can walk this life in the true victory that we know that we have. The Lord of the breakthrough is on your side. The Lord of the harvest is on your side. The Lord of peace is on your side. We'll talk again. Reach one, reach many, be blessed. Until the next time, have an awesome week. Thanks again for listening to the episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe to wherever you listen to this podcast. Share with your friends, share with your neighbors, your coworker, your family members. Get this word out. Put it on your social media and say, hey, there's a place that's encouraging us to become who God has called us to be, that we are here and God is with us. Leave comments. We'll talk again. Peace.
Have you ever felt that you've not lived up to your full potential? Or maybe you felt that you have no idea what you truly want out of life, but you feel you can do more than what you're doing now? Then I have the book for you, 21 Steps to Walk in Purpose, to help you shake off the stagnation and fogginess into doing your purpose. Go to walkinpurposenow.com. Yes, that's walkinpurposenow.com and grab your copy today and walk in the purpose that you know is designed for you. Remember, I believe in you. So go and grab your copy of 21 Steps to Walk in Purpose and live the purpose that I know you have within you to live.
Thanks again for listening to another episode of the Witness Power Podcast. Don't forget to check us out at www.witnessthepowerpodcast.com. And also subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. And be sure to check out the Witness the Power fan page on Facebook. Have a great week.